In this episode of Pass FCE, an overview of the reading and use of English paper, and also speaking with Virtu, who is studying for the FCE exam. Welcome to Pass FCE, a Manchen Inglés podcast specifically created to help you pass the Cambridge First Certificate in English exam. I'm Craig. I'm a teacher at the British Council in Valencia, Spain. I'm a Cambridge oral examiner with over 20 years of teaching experience. You can learn English free at mancheningles.com and take your English to the next level with our audio podcasts at inglespodcast.com. So, we continue today with an overview, general information, a summary of the new FCE exam from January 2015. In the last episode, episode 7, we looked at the listening paper, and in episode 5, we spoke about the speaking. You can listen to these episodes and all the past episodes and read the transcription at inglespodcast.com. Now let's look at the reading and use of English part of the exam. These parts used to be separate before 2015. Now they are in the same paper, and you only have 1 hour and 15 minutes to do this section. One thing that teachers seem to agree on is that timing could be a big problem for you in this part. You have a lot to read and a lot to do in only 1 hour and 15 minutes. But we don't know because I'm recording this podcast in February 2015 and nobody has taken the exam yet. So we don't know. Next week, I'll be doing some testing with my students and I'll be able to tell you for my experience in my class how the students are managing with 1 hour and 15 minutes for this part of the exam. And in the future, we'll be giving you more information on how to do this section better. So, let's look at the separate parts of the reading and use of English paper and see exactly what you have to do. Do you know how many parts there are in this paper? Well, there are 7 parts altogether. Parts 1 to 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4, test grammar and vocabulary mainly. And parts 5 to 7 have reading comprehension tasks with longer reading texts. There are a total of 52 questions altogether, and this paper is worth 40% of your total mark. So you get 40% for the reading and use of English, 20% for the writing, 20% for the listening, and 20% for the speaking. So let's look at part 1 of this paper. Part 1 is the multiple choice close. You have a text and you have to complete the text, which contains 8 gaps, by choosing one word from 4 possibilities. So it's multiple choice, A, B, C, or D. And this first exercise mainly tests your vocabulary. Things like linking words, collocations, words which go together, idioms, some fixed phrases, phrasal verbs perhaps. There are 8 questions in this part. Here's an example. Memory is at the of our identity as human beings. And the 4 possibilities we have: A, heart, B, key, C, bottom, D, basic. So our possibilities would be: memory is at the heart of our identity as human beings. Or Memory is at the key of our identity as human beings. Or memory is at the bottom of our identity as human beings. Or memory is at the basic of our identity as human beings. You need to look before and after the gap for dependent prepositions, collocations, and grammar. For example, is it a gerund? Is it an infinitive? So in the example, basic is usually an adjective, not a noun. The noun would probably be base, and we need a noun here. We wouldn't say at the key. We would probably say memory is the key. So now we have to choose between heart and bottom. Memory is at the bottom of our identity as human beings is a correct sentence grammatically, but it doesn't fit the context of the text. The best word and the correct answer is at the heart. Memory is at the heart of our identity as human beings. So that's the first part, a text with 4 possibilities, A, B, C, and D. Now, part 2 is called an open close. You need to complete a text containing 8 gaps by choosing one word for each gap. So, parts 1 and 2 are similar. You have texts with gaps, and you have to complete the texts with a word in each gap. But there are 2 main differences. In part 1, you have a choice of 4 words. Only one word is correct. In part 2, the open close, there are no choices. No choices. You have to think which word could possibly be missing. Also, the missing words in part 1 are often vocabulary words, words with meaning, like verbs, nouns, adverbs, adjectives, etc. The missing words in part 2, however, are often, but not always, grammar words like prepositions, articles, pronouns, auxiliary verbs. So, part 1 is testing your vocabulary more, like linking words, collocations, idioms, fixed phrases, phrasal verbs. On the other hand, part 2 is testing your grammar, the prepositions that go with phrasal verbs, pronouns, auxiliary verbs, articles, etc. There is some focus on vocabulary, but usually the missing words will be words without meaning, grammar words. In part 1, for example, you may need to choose the verb part of a phrasal verb, like the wake in wake up. But in part 2, maybe you choose up to make the phrasal verb. Or perhaps in part 1, you need a verb or a noun collocation, like the have into have a relationship, for example. There are 8 questions in this part, the same as in part 1. You can see an example of this at mansioningles.com in the First Certificate section. Moving on to part 3. Part 3 is called word formation, and there are 8 questions to answer. You have a complete text that has 8 gaps, and you complete it by making a new word from the given root word. For example, maybe the given word is happy, and you have to change it to unhappy, or the adverb happily, or the noun happiness. There may be irregular word changes, like changing long to length, wide to width, or deep to depth. In this part, it's important to understand the text or the context, because maybe you need a negative word, or maybe you need a positive word. Maybe the answer is unfortunate and not fortunate? Maybe the answer is dissatisfaction and not satisfaction. The only way you know this is to understand the meaning of the text. Don't worry, we will help you in future podcasts, and we will be looking in detail at word families, word changes, prefixes, suffixes, and how to make changes in words. So we're going to help you with all this. Part 4 is the key word transformation part, and there are 6 separate questions in this part. There are 2 sentences in each question. So it's not a complete text in part 4, 6 separate questions that are not connected. So each question has 2 sentences. The second sentence has a gap which has to be completed with 2 to 5 words, one word of which is a given keyword that you cannot change. Again, you can see examples of this part at mansioningles.com in our first certificate section. The keyword transformation part, this part of the test, is testing grammar, vocabulary, and collocation. There are only 6 questions, but many students find this exercise the most difficult. You will improve with practice, but you also need to know the grammar, vocabulary, and collocations that this part of the exam is testing. We'll be giving you a list of the main grammar points you need to know in future episodes of Pass FCE. Part 5 takes us on the first full reading-based task. Although parts 1, 2 and 3 have complete texts, parts 5, 6 and 7 have longer texts, and they focus more on your reading skills. Part 5 is a multiple choice part exercise. You have to read a text and then answer 6 multiple choice questions. You can choose one answer from 4 possibilities, A, B, C, or D. Part 6 is a text with gaps in it. It's called the gapped text exercise, unsurprisingly. You read a text from which sentences have been removed and placed in a jumbled, mixed-up order after the text. You must decide from which part of the text the sentences have been removed. There are 6 questions in this part, and it tests cohesion, coherence, and text structure. Cohesion refers to the connectivity in a text, how ideas are connected together. And coherence refers to how easy it is to understand the writing. The final part of the paper is part 7. It's called multiple matching, and you read a text or several short texts preceded by multiple matching questions. And you have to match a prompt to elements in the text. There are 10 questions in this part of the test, and this task focuses on identifying detail, identifying the opinion of the writer, finding specific information, and things that are implied or suggested in the text. So, as you can see, there is a lot to do in this part of the exam in only 1 hour and 15 minutes. You don't have to do the parts in order from 1 to 7. You may decide, for example, it will be easier to begin with the reading when you're fresh at the beginning of the test and then work back from part 7 to part 1. This way, you save the grammar and the shorter texts until last. You should do some practice tests before the exam, time yourself, and see which method, which system is best for you. As I said before, we will be focusing on each part of this paper in detail in future episodes. This was just a general overview for you, a general idea of what to expect. If you have any questions about this part or any part of the FC exam, you can send an email to me at craig@inglespodcast.com. Or you can record a voice message and practice your speaking on our website at inglespodcast.com. Before I go and leave you, I'd like to introduce you to one of my students, Virtu, who's taking the FCE exam in June this year. I'll be asking more students to come on the show in the future so that you can hear their English level and follow their progress. So here's Pass FCE's first interview with one of our students, Virtu. So I'm here with Virtu, and hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to speak to me. I want to ask you, Virtu, how long have you been studying English?
Well, I started studying English when I was about 6, so it makes 13 years, because now I'm 19, so 13 years.
Okay. And why are you studying for the FCE exam?
Well, I study English because I think it's important to learn, but I also have to have the title, and because that is what you have to give to the people that is going to contract you.
So are you studying at the moment at university?
Yes, I am in the university.
What are you studying?
Aerospace engineer.
Aerospace engineer?
Yes.
How's it going?
It is going well.
It sounds really hard. It sounds very difficult.
Well, if you like it, everything gets easier.
And is it your first year?
No, it's my second year.
How many years is the course?
Well, you have to do four years for the degree, but really the course takes 6 years, because until you don't get the master, you don't have the capability for signing projects. So there is 6 years, in fact.
Do you know what kind of job you want to do after?
Well, I would like to do something related to the space. My dream is to work in some space agency, but it's like very difficult. But something related with the space, I will be happy to do it.
So I would think you need English for whatever you do after.
Yes.
You're going to need English in aeronautics. Which part of this FCE course are you finding most difficult at the moment?
Well, I think maybe the most difficult part for me is the speaking part, because despite I think I know grammar and I know how to express myself, when you are nervous and you want to do it well, it's always more difficult.
Is there anything you do outside of the class to practice your speaking?
Well, I study my degree in English, so I try to make all my questions.
So wait, just a second. So at the university, your classes are in English?
Yes.
And are your teachers native speakers, or are they Spanish?
They are Spanish, so it's like a bit strange, because we are all Spanish, and we will probably express ourselves better in Spanish, and the teachers will be more comfortable in Spanish, but we are all talking English. It's a bit strange.
So everybody in the class is Spanish, and your teacher is Spanish, and your teacher is teaching you in English?
Yes, because they want us to get familiar with the scientific words, because we are supposed to mainly work in English.
Right.
So in the industry, everything goes in English, so that's why we do it.
Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think it's silly?
Well, sometimes I think it's silly, because as I told you, some teachers doesn't feel comfortable talking English, and they sometimes don't express very well in English, and they will do it better in Spanish. But you get, I think, for example, some teachers doesn't speak very good, but that also makes you learn, because you not only learn about good people talking good, but also about the mistakes. And I think the best part is for the listening part.
Yeah.
Because if you have to take notes and at the same time pay attention, I think you improve in your listening a lot.
And you're listening to English every day?
Yes.
That's good. Virtu, can I ask you some questions from part 1 of the speaking paper?
Of course.
So, where are you from?
I'm from Spain.
Do you have a busy life at the moment?
A busy life? Yes, I think I have a busy life.
Why is your life busy?
Well, I wake up early, I go to the university, then I have lunch very quickly after my classes, and normally have some practical lessons, and then I have to train. I do sports, sorry. I'm in an athletics team, so I have to train about 3 hours a day, and about 9:30 I arrive to my house. You
train 3 hours a day, athletics?
Yes.
What do you do? Do you run? Do you do
yes,
any...
I run. I do 1,500 meters. That's my specialty. So
you train 3 hours every day? That's
yes.
Incredible to me.
So I arrive very late home, and I have to do some things for the university and also to have dinner. And
do you think you're getting enough sleep?
I try.
How many hours sleep do you usually get during the week?
Well, I try to sleep 7 hours, but in reality I don't think I sleep these 7 hours because I get very nervous to the bed, so I spend like 1 hour
laying in bed, not sleeping.
Yes.
So apart from athletics, is there a hobby that you enjoy doing?
Well,
when you do have spare time?
I think the thing I like the most to do when I have free time is watching films, especially in the cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And
what kind of films do you enjoy? Is there a favourite type of film that you like?
I like all type of films. It depends. Sometimes I'm more interested in an area and I watch a lot of films about this. Now I'm very interested in scientific films. I have been watching The Theory of Everything. It's a film about Stephen Hawking, and I also watch a film about a mathematician. But I have been also very interested in criminal films, but I like all kind of films.
Do you use the internet every day?
Yes, of course.
What do you use it for?
Well, especially for work, I think it's a powerful tool for searching all kind of information if you know how to use it properly, and also for social medias and reading the news.
Have you got any plans for this weekend?
Yes, I hope to see a friend of mine that it's a lot of time since I last saw her, so I hope to see her and maybe go for dinner tonight.
Mm-hmm. If you could learn a new skill, Virtu, what would you choose to do?
I have always wanted to know eskrima. I don't know if it is the word in English.
Eskrima?
Do you know with the...
Is it a sport?
Yes, it's with the weapons.
With a sword?
Yes.
Fighting with a sword?
Ah, yes.
Oh, that's in English, that's fencing.
Fencing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the first thing I have thought, but I think I would like to learn to do a lot of things.
And finally, which country would you most like to visit in the future?
Well, I would like to visit soon, and I think I'm going to do it in Nepal, but maybe next year I would like also to visit Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So because I think not the cities, but the forests and the lakes, I think it's a very interesting area. Alberta Lake,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very nice.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm sure you'll agree that Virtu spoke very, very well. I was amazed at her daily routine. Classes at the university in English and 3 hours of athletics practice running the 1,500 meters. Whew, I'm tired just thinking about it. Virtu did say one or two things that can be improved. Now, if you want to see my suggestions for improving her speaking, go to the show notes for this episode, that's episode 8, at inglespodcast.com. Thanks to Virtu, thank you for listening, and we'll be back very soon with another episode of Pass FCE. In the next episode, an overview of the writing paper and another interview with an FCE student. Remember, you can learn English free at mansioningles.com and take your English to the next level with our audio podcasts at inglespodcast.com. Our CD Mansion First, which has been adapted for the exam in 2015, is full of practice material, useful advice, and realistic exam practice tests that will prepare you for taking the Cambridge FCE exam. You can read more about the contents, and you can buy this CD on the project page of our website at mansioningles.com. This course is also now available as a direct digital download direct to your PC. Thanks for listening and keep studying.